Some of the material in my book, Oneness Embraced, was drawn from my doctoral dissertation. It was a biblical critique of selected issues in black theology, and it forced me to have to look in the scriptures to analyze what was happening coming out of many of the events of the civil rights movement. And I was able to expand on some of those concepts, and it's an honor to be able to read some portions of my book, Oneness Embraced, to you today. One of the issues we've got to address is unity, and why unity really matters, and how it needs to be achieved in a righteous way. Applying a biblical understanding to struggles within the culture is the only example of authentic solutions that ought to be presented to the broader society on how to address social issues through the private sector. This biblical approach should apply to all of the problems our society faces today, including housing, employment, education, and poverty. The historical black church, with little or no governmental support, was the spiritual hub that connected the community spokes of black-owned and operated businesses, the black press, black colleges, and community-based mutual aid societies. Today, we can function in the same role. The black church can be the hub that turns the wheels of black community development and revitalization, as well as the foundation for racial reconciliation and true spiritual oneness in America. The black church has deposited in its biblical legacy and cultural history the clearest model of biblical Christianity in the history of American religion. This is not because the black church is innately superior to the white church, but because it historically operated more in line with the comprehensive nature of biblical revelation and a kingdom orientation. It did so because the community's cultural historical roots and worldview, coupled with the reality of American slavery and racism, forced the black church to grapple with aspects of biblical revelation that were unnecessary for the majority culture to have to deal with in any comprehensive manner. The contemporary black evangelical church stands on a unique pinnacle to be the visual form of the assets of incarnational Christianity. That is, Christianity that visibly displays itself in culture-wide influence, lifestyle, and social ethics. Such assets also include corporate compassion, comprehensive biblical justice, the celebrative nature of worship, holistic ministry, and an integration between the social and the spiritual. Far from being an uneducated, erratic, and inept folk religion, the historical black church in America was the primary proving ground for biblical Christianity. It uniquely demonstrated the relationship between love and justice. It demonstrated the nature of the church as a family and community of believers rather than simply a gathering of individualized family units. The black church personified the relationship between faith and works, and how that relationship transcends the personal matters of life and enters into the spheres of politics, economics, social justice, and law. The great mosaic of the historical black church shows that there was no difference between secular and sacred. The church demonstrated clearly that the purpose of the sacred is that it might invade the secular and transform it. It reflected and transmitted God as the epicenter of life, all of life. And it demanded that culture be called to task for any failure to recognize him as such. If the lessons of the historical black church are instructional for the culture at large, then they are even more so for the black community itself. If the historic black church, using biblical principles, was able to solidify us, sustain us, protect us, promote us, house us, clothe us, feed us, employ us, and represent us during the worst of times, then how much more should we now appeal to that same biblically based authority today? The black church no longer needs artificial motivators to give us dignity. We already have, resident in our biblical God, African heritage, and black church experience, all we need to humbly stand tall. In God's definition of us, we operate in a secure identity because who we are is rooted in a sovereign, immutable being who has the last word about all things. It is high time for us in the black church to operate and draw from our strengths, and for the white church to draw from and use these strengths as well, rather than both groups being duped into inertia due to illegitimate perceptions that are without substance or authority. It is time for the black church to unite ourselves again and lead the way in replacing our culture's myopic thinking with long-term, biblically based strategies designed to aggressively reverse the state of affairs in urban America. Well, it's time to get busy because I believe the church is the key. And I hope that these excerpts from my book, Oneness Embraced, are not only informing, educating, but also inspiring and challenging you to let's use a biblical paradigm to heal the wounds in our land and to open up a runway for God's glory of healing and unity to land on so that we can truly be one nation under God.